Do it again. Turn to your neighbor and say, bless you. I was taught as a child to say, bless you, after someone sneezed. And I never knew why, and they never told me why. And as time would go on, I would hear my parents say, God bless you, just to a stranger walking down the street when they would nod or say, God bless you. And I never quite understood why, and they never told me. And as I got older, I began to think about this thing of blessing. And the most vivid memory to me about it was a friend of mine who used to have trouble understanding how blessing worked. And just like me, we heard it all our lives. We just didn't quite have a conversation with people who told us to say it. And his particular approach was that when there was something that he desperately wanted or needed, for which he prayed long and hard and finally received, that was a blessing. On the other hand, if he did not get what he prayed long and hard for, or what he thought he needed, he concluded that God had forsaken him. So you get where we're going. Blessing is totally misunderstood, and because he had this misunderstanding, it was sad because the idea of blessing for him was a source of anxiety rather than something confirming a sense of peace and wholeness, a sense that God has indeed done something. Now, I knew there was something unsettling and limiting about this way of viewing God's blessing. And it occurred to me that my friend was doing something that I think we all have a tendency to do. He was treating blessing much like we treat something valuable in our modern economy. It's a commodity subject to transactional exchange. So blessing now has become associated with material success, material wealth. If you're wealthy and you're successful, boy, that person is really blessed. On the other hand, if you have failed or you're poor or you're struggling, somehow you're not blessed. And this is blessing at its most materialistic and individualistic, conferring a private benefit to a person. And it is used to determine how worthy we feel. That doesn't sound like blessing to me. God's blessing cannot be reduced to economic exchange. God's blessing cannot be benefits that we dole out and control. You see, what Genesis is showing us is that God's blessings flow from God's presence, word, and action. God's blessings in some way are supposed to create, restore, enhance, and safeguard everything. God's blessing is how God distributes wholeness and well-being to God's creation. Pastor, how do you know that? Because in the beginning of Genesis, in the creation story, God's blessing is what transformed formless chaos into something ordered and purposeful. You see, God is so full of love and generosity that blessings flow, even when nothing was done to receive it. Chaos didn't say, hey, God, bless me. God just did it. If you're not convinced, let's step forward. Abram, we don't even know who Abram is. God just decided one day, hey, dude, I'm blessing you. Just decided. So God's blessing flows Whether we want to control it or find out how to get it, God's blessing flow when no one does anything even to receive it. So God blessed Abram. And by the way, that blessing was so uncontrollably powerful that it extended generations after Abraham died. Boy, that's some blessing. It flows whether Abraham was walking on earth or buried beneath it. God's blessing is so powerful that if someone who has received God's blessing pronounces a blessing on someone else, guess what? God backs it up. So when I told you to tell your neighbor, bless you, God has the power to back up the blessing you just offered. You didn't even know you were that powerful, did you? You didn't even know we had that much power, did you? But if you say, bless you, God is trustworthy enough, God is so abundant enough, God is so generous enough that God will back up the blessing that you just pronounced. Now, here's the thing. Rebekah and Jacob know this. They know how blessings work. They know how its power and its benefits can be transferred to another. And they know that if Isaac pronounces blessing, God will back it up. Isaac, Abraham's son, who carries the blessings of God's promise and covenant loyalty that God gave to his father, is old and is prepared to pronounce blessing on the next generation. And the rules of inheritance suggest that his firstborn, Esau, will inherit not only his estate, but also receive the blessing given him by his own father. But here's the thing. Rebekah wants her favorite son, the baby, Jacob, to have the blessing. I assume she fears that there is not enough to go around and that without the blessing, Jacob's life won't be successful. Sound familiar? She wants the blessing for Jacob. So she sets out to deceive the aging and blind Isaac to ensure that Jacob will get the blessing to which Esau was entitled and expected to receive. And look what she does. Look how far she goes. She covers Jacob's body in animal skins and Esau's clothes. She prepares the food Isaac directed Esau to prepare for him. And she pushes Jacob to pretend to be his brother to receive the blessing. Jacob willingly participates, lying about who he is and even implicating God in the betrayal. I'm Esau. Esau, how did you get the food so quick? God helped me. Just lying. And because of Rebekah and Jacob's conspiracy, lies, and deception, Isaac blesses Jacob rather than Esau. Now, the obvious question is, how can something so good, creative, and restorative, I just told you what God's blessings are, how could that be conferred on someone who lied to get it? How can God's generous blessing be the source of this kind of anxiety for Rebekah? How should we view a blessing that was secured through lies and deceit? I'm going to tell you something. I'm having trouble with it. I wrestle with this. I wrestle with this idea that Jacob will get a blessing that he lied to get. I wrestle with this story because I grew up believing that how you receive something is just as important as getting it. I was taught that lying and deceiving to get what you want would eventually lead to loss and failure. But here, that's not what happened. Jacob gets the blessing. And I know this story violates our sense of how right and wrong should work when someone who doesn't deserve something actually receives it. And then we know lies and deceit break and distort relationship. Oh, we know this. We know this. It certainly destroyed the peace in Isaac and Rebekah's family and severed the relationship between Jacob and Esau. So one's behavior can still do great damage and harm, even as one enjoys the blessing. How is that possible? And I tell you this, though, the blessings we enjoy, they don't mean that we live a life trouble-free or that we won't experience failure and disappointment. Although Jacob got the blessing, he discovered that God's blessing can also be a burden. Yeah, he got the blessing. The blessing will follow him all his life, but it also made him a fugitive. It also made him fear for his life. He spent the rest of the few chapters in Genesis running away from his brother because Esau wanted to kill him. He didn't have a moment's peace. It also means as he accepted this blessing, it took him 14 years of hard labor and work to get the wife he really wanted. He got deceived by somebody else. No. That we carry the good with the bad and the challenge with the success. So now, we want blessing. But then you just told me, Pastor, it doesn't mean that my life is going to be good. We want the blessing, and God's blessings are about abundance and enhancing and restoring and creating my life. But you told me I might still have trouble. Which is it? Which is it? One commentator says, and I love it, I've been saying it all week, blessing has its own way. And what he meant by that is God's got work to do. And guess what? God's not going to tell you every time what God is up to. Blessings. They have the power to create and restore and enhance our lives, but they don't do the whole thing. They don't do the whole story. We still have to live because God is up to something. The truth is that morally compromised and bankrupt people often receive wonderful blessings. Many of us know liars and deceivers who enjoy great success and prosperity. I used to say it all the time. That is a mean man. Why has he got all that blessing? Well, that person is so stingy, and yet they have more money than I could ever dream of. Why is God blessing them? But again, that's the issue. That we have decided to see blessing as only as material success. Only as somehow the things that we measure success in our modern income. That's how we do it. But what Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau will soon find out is that we are not the ones who determine how God's blessings work. And we are not the ones who determine who should receive God's blessing. Perhaps if Rebekah and Jacob understood that blessings are bound up in the prerogatives of God, of God's beneficent power to enhance our lives, then perhaps they would have seen that God is always willing to work in and through all of us to provide blessing. So the reason I say bless your neighbor is because we have no idea how that blessing will flow. We have no idea how God will enhance and restore by simply asking God to do it. You have no idea what your neighbor is going through. And perhaps if we say the word, if we pronounce it, that God will move and enhance and restore the life of your neighbor no matter what they're going through. That's the beauty of God's blessing. God is always willing to do it for us. You didn't clap. That's all right. The trick here is to trust that God is loving and faithful enough to make it all better. I believe that God is faithful to make it all better. I remember at the beginning, I'll go back to it. The whole earth was formless and it was a void. It was chaotic. And God is so loving and just. God said, I'm going to put some order to it. I'm going to give it some fruitfulness. I'm going to make it thrive and live. God wants to do that for us too. And unfortunately, we become beholden to that story of original sin and the fall of humankind that we have forgotten that God is faithful and just. God is always loyal to God's promise. God has always been willing to share God's abundance with creation. And we fear because we don't have as much as we need or desire, or because there are so many others who enjoy things that we'll never enjoy, that somehow we're not blessed. Many of us have stopped believing in the power of God to even create, restore, enhance our lives. And so we just say, I'm a failure. I can't make it. It's not worth it. But I'm here to tell you that God's blessings flow. And they don't always come in the form that we need them to come. Oh, how do you know that, Pastor? How do you know? Because sometimes when I don't even know I need it, God blesses. When I'm down, I'm out. I don't feel I can go just another minute. I'm just like, something's not setting right with me. And then I'll get a phone call from my husband, and he says, I just called to say I love you, and that's a blessing. When the sadness comes, or when I feel like I'm failing, and I feel like I don't have friends, and I'm saying, God, where are you? And he's been right there in the moment. When I say, God, where are you right now? The text bings, and it is one of my dear friends sending something that makes me boil over in laughter. And I say, wow, that was a blessing. Or when I think that you look at budgets and you look at things, you say, are we going to make it? Are we going to go to the next level? Or is God going to be here? And then someone walks into your office and say, Pastor, I was just thinking of this church and the work that you do. Here's some money. Just have it. And don't have to tell anybody I gave it to you. That's the blessing. That's how I know that the blessing comes through. And I didn't have to do anything to receive it. We all believe also, because we live in this economy, that blessings are scarcely and costly, that somehow we have to pay something for it. Oh, I know we've been told, oh, you're not going to be blessed because you haven't been to church in 3 months. Oh, you're not going to be blessed because you're not living like you ought to. You're not going to be blessed because you happen to be gay. You're not going to be blessed. No, that's not how God's blessing works. It doesn't work that way. God's blessings flow because God is so generous and so full of love that it can't help but go that way. And sometimes we get preoccupied with trying to get the blessing. Oh, we define it. The true blessing will be if I get the new car. The true blessing will be if I can get that outfit I've been wanting to get. Oh, but the true blessing to come is when I get all the money I can do and I don't ever have to worry about paying another bill. That's the true blessing. No, that's not the true blessing. I know, I've been in those, I've said it too. If you just give me this, then I'll know I'm blessed. But I'm here to tell you, and I want you to understand it, that God's love and generosity are not scarce commodities for which we need to compete and conspire and control. We do not have to lie and conspire to prevent our neighbor from receiving a blessing. We don't have to orchestrate it for our own selves. The promise of God's abundance and benevolence can be extended to whomever and whenever God is present. And so with that understanding, I'm inviting you to pronounce blessing as a matter of course. I'm inviting you to pronounce blessing as you walk throughout your day and throughout your week. I'm inviting you to just create an atmosphere where God's generosity just flows in unexpected and crazy ways. And so you go down the street and someone says, hello, I want you to say, God bless you, and pronounce it so the blessings will flow. Because I do believe, if we say bless you to someone else, that all God's generosity will flow. And that blessing will rebound to you too. God does have a blessing just for us. It really is there. And the truth is, we may not ever know what exactly it is. Certainly we have desires that we want, but maybe the blessing that you get is just the one designed just for you, just where you are, just in the way that you need it, and just in the nick of time. God is willing to create, to restore, to enhance, to safeguard our lives. So, don't claim anyone else's blessing. Don't worry about blessings that don't seem to flow. Pronounce blessing wherever you go and be prepared to receive it. Because I believe, I know, I trust, I feel it, I got a testimony that the blessings will come down. Amen.